And good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me for the live Q&A in March 2025. Let me know, as always, if you can hear me and see me okay, but more importantly, if you can hear me okay and everything is working fine, because I've got a new microphone. Ding, it's one of these. Seen lots of other people wearing it, and I contacted Derek from Kanji Studios, and Derek has been helping me out with getting a new microphone. We've spent quite a bit of time today. Turns out I've had all sorts of issues going on with my computer, but I think it is working fine. So yeah, Derek's in the chat. Thank you very much, Derek, for all of your help in setting this up. And I might be using this more in future. We will see, because for the last few years since I moved away from the lapel mics, and we won't go into all of the problems that I used to have with lapel mics that nobody else in the world seems to have, but I do. We won't go into that. I've been using the overhead mics. The problem with the overhead mics is that I've only got 2 of them, and when it's just me, it's fine. But when I have multiple people in the room, I have to have them quite a distance away from me, which means you get reverb issues, which means I have to fix the reverb issues, all that sort of stuff. So I've been looking for another audio solution for quite a while, and this might be the one that I use from now on. We will see. We will see how. Yeah, it's a bit muddy sounding. That's what I noticed as well. I noticed that compared to my other microphone, these are a little bit more, a bit muffled. The bass is a little bit too high on them. So we're going to use it for today. There's not much that I can do with it at the moment without really going in and setting all sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, I say there's nothing I can do. If everybody is saying that there is an equalization issue, I do actually have an equalizer all ready to go, so we can put it on and we'll see if that goes. I've already configured it, but I did a test earlier on and it didn't seem to make much difference. But here we go. We're going to turn on the equalizer now. And when I say the equalizer, I don't mean Edward Woodward. So the equalizer is now on, and on that equalizer, I've basically increased the high-end frequencies. So yeah, let me know if that sounds any better or not. 99% better. Oh well, that's enough for me. Okay, we'll leave the equalizer on then. So there we go. Anyway, welcome to this month's live Q&A again, and thank you very much for helping me sort out these new audio systems that we're experimenting with. So the format of this show is going to be very similar to previous months. I've been asked a whole bunch of questions in advance over on the Board Game Geek Guild. I'm going to go through all of those questions first. If you are watching live and you do have any questions for me, please put them in the chat and start with the word question in capitals. Vicky will then transfer them to a document which I will have on screen, and we'll get to them later on. But the first part of the show is me going to be answering questions on the Board Game Geek Guild. Now, if you are watching this video back later and you're thinking, oh, I'm never around for Paul's live Q&As, how can I ask him some questions? You need to head on over to the guild. This is guild number 2258 on Board Game Geek. Vicky's going to put a link to it in the chat, and it's also in the description of this video. Head on over to the guild, make sure you join, but also click that subscribe button. If you don't subscribe, you won't actually get any notifications that anything's going on. And usually about 4 or 5 days before each Q&A, I will post a thread on there asking for questions. And that's what I'm going to go through now. So, where is it? Where is it? Oh, wait a minute. I've got audio coming out on my computer. Let's turn that down. Right. So the first question is from NS, and this is, are you interested in any of the Ion Game Design games? So this is a publisher called Ion Games Design, and he says he's particularly interested to know about Greenland and Neanderthal first, and then the BIOS series with Genesis, Megafauna, Origins, and Mesofauna. The rule books are very hard to get through to understand how to play the game. So having me teaching and playing will be handy to get it to the table. This would mean I would have to learn the game, which I'm not sure I'm remotely interested in these games. So we're going to start off with a controversial, difficult question. To answer your question, no, I am not interested in any of the games that this publisher does. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is that some of those games that you've mentioned, the designer of those games, let's just say that there are certain things about that designer which a lot of people don't like, and I'm with those people. I I do have some issues with the way that designer, what am I trying to say? I'd prepared this as well. Their outlook on life and some of the things that they say. Now, I'm all for freedom of speech, and that's fine, but that also gives me the right to completely disagree with what somebody's saying on a personal level. So yeah, I have issues with somebody who designs a lot of games for this company, in particular the ones that you've mentioned, Greenland, Neanderthal, etc., etc. The other thing is rule books. Now, as some of you know, I have a very low tolerance for bad rule books. In fact, over the last 10 years, that's just got even worse. As I started working on rule books myself, and I worked with a number of publishers who put in a huge amount of effort into their rule books and got their rule books blind play tested and went through numerous rounds of proofreading. Creating a good rule book for a game, especially a heavy, complex game, is a huge amount of work and it's a massive undertaking. But I firmly believe that the people who buy the games deserve to get a good rule book. If you've spent your money on buying a board game from a publisher and you find it really difficult to learn how to play that game because the rule book is terrible, I have issues with that on a fundamental, because it's wrong. You know, publishers who create games should not have to have the people who buy their games have to put in so much effort to learn it because of a bad rule book. So, I mean, I'd like to think in a utopia that all rule books are really good rule books, and that would be great. But the reality is that they're not. However, and again, this is down to this particular designer, but their rule books for the last 10 or more years have been shockingly bad. Some of the worst rule books ever, and that isn't changing. Now, some publishers used to put out bad rule books, but eventually they learned and they said, look, we're really sorry. We've been doing bad rule books for a few years. We know we need to get better and we're going to get better. A lot of publishers have done that. The rule books that I've seen from this particular designer and from what people have told me about it is that they're just as bad now as they were before, and they are mostly incomprehensible. Now, that might be an unfair statement. For all I know, they might have completely turned the corner 2 or 3 years ago, and their rule books might now be great. I don't know. I've had no interest in any of their games for a very, very long time now. So I instantly switch off, not interested, and therefore, yeah. So yeah, there we go. That's that's that. Moving on to the next question, which hopefully isn't going to be as difficult to answer. This is from Davis. I suspect there are games that you haven't tried. Yes, simply because of unavailability. Which game titles would they be? Now, I have had a bit of a think about this earlier on, and honestly, I can't think of one. And if you're watching this live and you've got some answers about this, please put them in the chat. Or if you're watching this back afterwards, leave me a comment. The question is, which game would you like to try, but you can't because of unavailability? And I'm struggling to think of a game that I really would like to try, but I can't because it's not available, I don't have it. And we're not talking Tabletop Simulator here, because Tabletop Simulator has opened up such a world of possibilities. Like, I remember during lockdown, I really wanted to play Blackstone Fortress. So I did. I mean, I did have a friend who had Blackstone Fortress, but it was lockdown and he wasn't allowed to come round because the police would have carried him away in a big blue van. So Tabletop Simulator has opened up a lot of possibilities, especially for older games, which are just really hard to get hold of. But even not counting Tabletop Simulator, I think this is because I have the luxury of I've already got so many games that I want to cover that right now I can't think of one that I would really want to play, but I can't because I can't get hold of it. So yeah, let me know if that is something that you think about, and let me know if you've got games that you would love to play but you can't because you don't know anybody who has them. The next question is from Blaine. What are your favourite custom inserts and component upgrades? Now, Blaine might not know, but I'm not generally a huge fan of custom inserts or component upgrades. And the reason for that is I play so many games, and I have to play so many games, and I have to cover so many games, that even my super favorite games, I probably wouldn't go out and buy a custom insert for. Now, I am very much in the Ziploc bag corner of the room. I love my Ziploc bags. I have a huge amount of Ziploc bags. I'm a collector of Ziploc bags, you could say. And I have no problem whatsoever with getting a game out and taking all of the components out of the Ziploc bags. I know I'm in the minority. The general consensus of most of the board gaming population these days is that they want a nice flashy insert because it makes setup time quicker. I personally don't find that it makes my setup time quicker unless you've got a game where, you know, there's a whole load of tiles that are all supposed to be laid out in a particular fashion, and you've got an insert that basically means you can take out the insert and put them on the table. That's kind of one step further. So yeah, I don't have that many games with custom inserts or upgrades. Yeah, I did get sent the nice acrylic pieces for June, and they're nice. You know, I'm not saying I don't like playing with these nice pieces, but because I don't play the same game enough, that I've never felt the desire or need to have, or to certainly go out of my way to buy any of this stuff. Now, I have to give a shout out to Richard Dewsbury. He's a friend of mine. He's a patron supporter. Richard has his own Etsy shop, and he does 3D custom components. And he made recently, for me, some of the domes for Shackleton Base. Now, Richard wasn't able to make it to GridCon, but what I said is that if you wanted to virtually sell some of your component upgrades at GridCon, that would be absolutely fine. If you sent me a set of the Shackleton Base one. So yes, thank you very much, Richard, for those. I didn't pay for them. They are very, very nice. And would I have bought them myself? No. And that's not because I don't think they're worth it. They are really nice. But Shackleton Base, for me, I've only played it 3 or 4 times. I'm hopefully going to be playing it more times. But is that going to be a game which is going to be one of my top 10 games which I'm going to play 5 times a year? No, it's not. So therefore, the idea of paying for upgraded components for a game which might not get played as much, I don't know. It seems to me these days, a lot of people, including a lot of people who I know, friends of mine, straight away they're upgrading games all of the time. Which, as I say, it does make them nicer to play, but yeah. Right, moving on. Next question we have from William. Did I finish painting? Can we see your favourite painted minis from it? And have I played it again? And if so, any further thoughts on it? So there's 4 questions there. First of all, did I finish painting Batman Gotham City Chronicles? The answer to that is no. I didn't finish painting the core set of Batman Gotham City Chronicles. And since then, Monolith have sent me all of the Season 2 and Season 3 add-ons. I was very grateful because I did a lot of work on the Batman Gotham City Chronicle rulebook, and that's what they said they were going to do. So they did, but when it all arrived, I went through them and went, oh, what the heck? There's so many. Now, this game sells well because of lots and lots of miniatures, and if you're into Batman and everything else, you go, oh, look, an alternative sculpt. This is Batman from comic number 16 from 1963. Look, the one where he's wearing the purple gloves or something like that. And you're like, okay, right, yeah. So there's I don't know how many miniatures there are for Batman Gotham City Chronicles if you throw in all of the expansions and add-ons and everything else. I haven't finished painting the ones from the core set. I probably got about, I don't know, maybe, I think I painted about 60 or 70 of them, which was probably about halfway through, maybe halfway through. But yes, I haven't done that. Is the sound weird? Apparently the sound is a little weird. Has something changed? Has something changed with the sound? I mean, I've not changed anything, but let me know if the sound is still weird. As I say, I am using the new microphone and something might have gone wrong with it. But as you can see, I've not touched anything. Nothing's changed. Peter says the sound is the same for him. Vicky says sound is the same for you. Okay, so I don't think it's changed. Okay, it might have changed for some people. There's been a glitch, but the sound is okay. Okay, we're going to carry on. Always nervous about sound issues. So yeah, I haven't finished painting it. Can we see my favourite painted miniatures from it? So I don't have them here, but what I will say is that I will set myself a note for when I record the monthly video log at the end of this month. Just for you, William, I will put up on screen a picture of some of my favourite painted miniatures from Batman Gotham City Chronicles. The next question is, have you played it again? The answer to that is no, and part of the reason for that is just simply I don't have the time to play it, and if I have any further thoughts on it. So I do have thoughts on Batman Gotham City Chronicles. Now bear in mind these are my own personal thoughts. I don't want anybody to take any offence against this whatsoever, because I have a good relationship with Monolith and I have a lot of respect for the designer of the game, but a number of times that I played the game, I felt it was a bit too swingy for me. Now, the game does have dice for resolution. It has a lot of dice for resolution. And some of those dice, the white dice specifically, is what I'm thinking about, is that they have a whole bunch of blank sides, and they have a couple of sides with one success, and they have one side with two successes. So if you're rolling 4 white dice, you can get anywhere from 0 to 8 successes. Now, the chances of getting 8 is very slim, but the point is it can happen. And in a game like Batman Gotham City Chronicles, where everything is so tight and 1 or 2 successes might make a big difference, I was finding, certainly in the last couple of games that I played of it, it was just a little bit too swingy. And what that would mean is you would have to spend time setting up the game, time playing the game, time learning the game and understanding how all of the mechanisms work and everything else. And then you're an hour into the game or an hour and a half into the game and somebody gets a lucky roll. And because the scenarios are so kind of on a knife edge, that it can basically, that can decide the game. And I wasn't happy with that level of swinginess in a game where I had to put in a huge amount of effort into, you know, really deciding how much stamina I wanted to spend, exactly where I wanted to move to. All of these micro decisions suddenly meant nothing because a couple of grunts came along and managed to roll a whole bunch of successes. Now, saying that, some of you may know that I'm a huge fan of Agamonia. Now, Agamonia is a fantasy cooperative board game. We're playing the campaign at the moment, and we will be for the next couple of years. And the dice system in Agamonia is amazing. I absolutely love the dice system in Agamonia. So on my list of things to do when I retire, which is otherwise known as this will never ever happen, but in another world I'd love to do it, I'd love to actually completely redesign the entire Batman Gotham City Chronicles game to use a dice system very similar to Agamonia. Now, for those people that don't know, and I won't go into too many details here because this is like a 45-minute discussion. I have thought about this a lot over the last 6 months. In Batman Gotham City Chronicles, you decide how much stamina you want to spend, and then you roll a whole bunch of dice, and the more stamina you spend, the more dice you roll, and then you count the number of successes on the dice. Okay? That's how Batman Gotham City Chronicles works. In Agamonia, you choose which action you want to do, and you roll a whole bunch of dice. Now, the cleverness in Agamonia is none of those dice have blanks on them. Every single dice you roll will, assuming you have stamina to spare, will get you 1 success. Now, what that means is, if we start talking statistical bell curves here, which is I know what you're all here for, is if I'm rolling 4 dice in Agamonia, I know that I'm going to get at least 4 successes. And therefore your bell curve is suddenly a lot more suited to a Eurogamer than it is to somebody who likes a high level of randomness. And the way it works in Agamonia is that you don't spend the stamina before you roll, you spend the stamina after you roll. So you roll a whole bunch of dice, and some of those dice will have icons on them, which allows you to spend stamina to get extra successes. Now, what that means is when you're playing Agamonia, part of it actually feels like a resource management game. Your stamina is a resource, a little bit like in Batman, but you actually have a lot more control. So you roll the dice and you go, right, well, I've got 2 successes, and if I spend another, I can spend up to 3 stamina to get 3 more successes. Oh, right, okay. I just love the system. So anyway, that has been something that's been on my mind for a while, but the reality is I don't have time to do that, and it would take a huge amount of work. But if it was done, I would be more tempted. So open offer. If anybody out there wants to redesign the Batman Gotham City Chronicles system to a dice system more like Agamonia, let me know, because I would be well up for that. Right, next. Kenneth, when and why did your favourite player colour change from purple to light blue? Well, Kenneth, it hasn't changed to light blue. It's changed to teal, which is the colour of this background. And I think it started with this background. I was looking for a new background colour for this studio, and we looked around because I used to have a light background and I was having all kind of lighting issues with reflections and everything else. And with help from Vicky and my Patreon supporters, we basically decided on a darker background, and we looked at various colours, and I realised that I really liked the colour teal. So since doing that, I've grown more and more to like the colour teal. And as of right now, I would have to say that after about 15 years of purple being my favourite colour, I think teal is now my favourite colour. But it's very specific, because if you go one side of teal, you go into green. Yeah, not really a big fan of green. If you go another way from teal, you end up in blue. Now, I don't mind blue. Blue is kind of my third preference of player colour, but yeah, teal is my new favourite colour, and yeah, it's that's probably why it changed, and when probably about in the last year. Next question from Jim. Are you excited for Formula One this year? Reminds me to ask you, what's your preferred racing game? Yes, I am excited about Formula One this year because, and it starts this weekend. The Formula One season starts this weekend, and I'm very excited about it. In fact, I'm more excited about it this weekend than I have been for many years. And the reason for that is the way that the last season ended. Now, I've been watching Formula One for, what year is it? 28 years. So I've been watching Formula One for 28 years. And in all of that time, it was only last year where we literally had 4 teams competing for the win. And any one of 4 teams could have won. The start of the season, Max Verstappen was winning everything, but the second half of the season was brilliant. And I'm kind of hoping that this season starts where the last one left off, which means we're going to have a lot of really good competition. We're not going to have one driver dominating. We're not going to have one team dominating. Cross fingers. We will see. So yes, I'm excited about that this weekend. In the UK, we only get the British Grand Prix live on free-to-air TV. So we will be recording it on the Channel 4 highlight show, and we'll be watching it on the Sunday evening after we've played Agamonia. That's what's happening this Sunday. So yes. Next question from Adrian. What was the best year in terms of board game releases? In your view, which year stands out as the most significant for board game releases, whether due to groundbreaking innovations, highly influential titles, or an overall strong lineup of games? What makes that particular year exceptional in your opinion? Right, there's a lot of questions there, but what I will say is that 2016 and 2017, for me, certainly in recent times, were the 2 best years we've had. Now, I am not one of those people who constantly complain every year and say, rubbish games this year, no good games this year. Right, no. Every single year, we get dozens of brilliant, fantastic, exciting new games. Sure, overall, last year, 2024, was probably not as good as 2016. Does that mean it was a bad year? No, it wasn't a bad year. 2024 was a fantastic year. We got some amazing games that came out last year, and this year is no exception. We've got Elder Scrolls being delivered, not to me, but to other people. I will be getting my copy at some point. Galactic Cruise is just being delivered, right? Those 2 games are very likely right now in my top 10 games of all time. Both of them are absolutely fantastic. And we've got a huge number of other big, exciting new titles coming out this year. But I think 2016, 2017, certainly in the last 20 years, I think they were the best years. If you just look at the number of great games that came out in those 2 years, yeah, I think we're not going to beat that for quite a while. So yeah, which year stands out as the most significant for board game releases due to groundbreaking innovations? It's difficult because you've got to look at a game like Dominion, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 2006? That feels wrong. Somebody tell me what year Dominion came out. But the year that Dominion came out, that was groundbreaking. And Dominion has set the bar, well, not set the bar, but it started the ball rolling on deck building games. And deck building is now a mechanism that's used in dozens and dozens of games, and it's absolutely fantastic. But what games also came out in the same year that Dominion came out? I don't know. So I can't look at that year and say that year was massively influential, because it may have just been Dominion. I'm not saying that there weren't any other good games that came out. I'm just saying not ones that were that most influential. But anyway, 2016, 2017 is my vote. Right, Gavin is asking, do I have a set of lucky dice that I like to play with, or am I happy to use the ones provided in the game if it has dice? I do not have a set of lucky dice, and I am more than happy to use the ones provided in the game. So there you go. Easy question, Gavin. Thank you very much for the easy questions. Comment in the chat. Yes, Brian says 2007 had both Agricola and Brass. So yeah, that was a good year. And both of those games are exceptional games. Next question from Chad. You put out a variety of different videos each month. I do. Which are your favourite to create and why? Probably. Well, so, I mean, I do enjoy doing the live playthroughs because I'm getting to play games with friends and people at home are watching and cheering us on or joining in the chat or anything else. So, and to be honest, probably 75% of the content that I do on my channel is live playthroughs of games. So I do enjoy them, but I might make it look easy and I might make it look like I'm really having fun and enjoying myself. There is a brave face that I put on for a lot of my videos. Sometimes I am incredibly tired because I haven't been sleeping well and it's a sponsored video and I'm really nervous, really terrified because this is a sponsored video. I'm getting paid to do this and I am so on edge that I get a rule wrong or anything like that. And you might think, oh no, you're worrying about nothing, Paul. You're not going to get any rules wrong. I have, unfortunately, and this haunts me still, I have made a couple of rules errors in sponsored videos. And it's just, it happens sometimes. Now I can try to fix that with, Klingon subtitles or whatever later on, but it haunts me. So every time I'm doing any kind of sponsored live playthrough, I am trying to make sure the audience at home sees the fact that we're enjoying ourselves and I'm smiling. But inside, I'm constantly looking, is the microphone working? Is the stream working? Oh, there's a small glitch. Oh, a message has just popped up, saying, oh, widget's not picking up enough audio signal. I'm on edge for the whole stream. So that does get me a little bit worried. If we're talking about which is my favorite to create and why, the how to play videos is a completely different thing. Now, I don't do as many how to play videos as some other people, but that's because my how to play videos, generally speaking, take me a long time to create. I mean, we're talking, 95 hours for the Voidfall how to play. The last couple of how to play videos that I've been working on have actually been relatively small. I did one for the Earth Abundance, which was like 8.5 minutes long. And I've got one coming up for Gloomhaven 2nd edition, which is just a 10-minute kind of what's new in this video. But I'm a lot more relaxed about those. And the reason why I'm relaxed about those is because I've written a script. The script has been approved. I've then filmed the video. I've had the video checked by the designer and or publisher. My Patreon supporters have then checked it. And at the point it goes public, I am 99.9% sure that it's absolutely perfect. And therefore, I don't have the same levels of anxiety and worry with one of those videos that I do with the playthrough video. So it's a difficult thing. Do I prefer playing games with my friends than creating a how to play video? Yes, but there is always that background worry about something going wrong or getting a rule wrong. Good question. Thank you very much for that. Next question from James. Which games are improved by having an expansion and which games are better with just the base game? So I saw this question yesterday, James, when you asked it, and I think we're going to put this question over to the guild. So I mentioned the guild earlier on, guild number 2258 on Board Game Geek, And James, would you mind going over onto the guild and posting that as a question? Because I really want to see, as soon as I saw that question, I wanted to know what other people thought. So over on Board Game Geek, guild number 2258, there is going to be a question appearing on there at some point. If James is watching live, it might be there in 5 minutes. But it is which games are improved by having an expansion and which games are better than just the base game. Now, for me, I'm trying to think which ones. So straight away, as soon as you asked that question, my thoughts went to Fantasy Flight Games. Fantasy Flight Games, for many, many, many years, created a game and then an expansion made it better. And the reason for that is Fantasy Flight Games are generally popular games. And what happens with popular games is thousands of people buy it, thousands of people play it, and eventually some balance issues crop up within the game. And people will blame the playtesters and say, oh, the playtesters should have really properly tested this and whatever. But you can't really do, thousands of people playing a game. So I have no problem with games like Twilight Imperium or anything like that with getting an expansion which fixes some stuff from the base game. So in general, anything from Fantasy Flight Games I think would play better with an expansion because they use their expansions to tweak and make the base game better. I've recently talked about Earth Abundance because I've done a how to play video. Earth Abundance for me is a lot better with the expansion because it means that the watering action is a lot more useful than it used to be. And the Germinate special action that you can now do allows you, and it fixes the one problem that I had with Earth, which is you just, no matter how many cards you draw, you can't seem to find the card that you need. Now, with the Abundance expansion, it introduces this new resource called Seeds, and you can use the seeds to germinate, which is effectively look through the deck for a type of card that you want. And that's brilliant. So in that respect, I think as a general sweeping statement, expansions usually make the game better. Offhand, and this is really why I want to read this thread on BGG, what I want to know is from people, which expansions do you feel has made the game worse or that you would not include? So yeah, there you go. Let me know what you think about expansions. Which ones make the game better? And for me, which ones actually make the game worse? Right, moving on, we have Kenshiro. How viable is it that the UK could start a quality board/card game production system? Now, that is a really good question that I've never been asked before. And you might think that I would say I have no idea about this because the production of games is not something that I really get involved in. It's not a part of my job. However, I am aware of the process involved in physically producing card games, board games, why some stuff gets done in China, what gets done in Europe, the relative costs of getting things printed from somewhere in Germany to somewhere in China. I do know about those things. So honestly, I don't think it's viable. I do not think there is a possibility for any kind of quality, and you've used the word quality, board and card game production in the UK. I just don't think it can happen. In fact, we are still reliant on China for pretty much any miniatures and any plastic and things like that. So yeah, we can't do that. Good question though. Next question from Kat. Do we have GridCon 2025 details yet? We do. We have announced the dates for GridCon 6, which is going to be held at the Holiday Inn in Taunton from November 17th to 19th, 2025. Now, what we haven't announced is when the tickets are going to go on sale, but since you're asking, I can tell you what the rough plan is. April. Just April. Probably not the start of April, but probably the mid to the end of April, we are going to be making the first lot of tickets available for patron supporters. So what we've always done with GridCon is that we make a certain number of tickets available to patron supporters as early access tickets. As a thank you for supporting me, you get early access to GridCon. But we are limiting that to a certain number of people. We don't know exactly how many yet. And we already know that demand is going to outweigh supply. After a couple of weeks, the rest of the tickets will then be made available to the public. And last year they sold out in less than 4 minutes. So there is a little bit of a bun fight for the remaining tickets. And we do have an idea of what we might do to prevent the problems that happened last year. Because what happened last year is so many people were there at the time we said the tickets were going to go on sale that it didn't crash the website, but it did cause a lot of problems. And a number of people clicked on it, managed to get the ticket went into their basket, and then something went wrong with PayPal and it timed out, and basically it wasn't great. And it made us feel a bit bad that these people thought they'd got a ticket and then something went wrong and it turns out they didn't have a ticket. It all felt a bit rushed, and we're looking at other options for how we can do it this year. One of the options that was presented was, okay, people have a 24-hour period from the time we say go and then we say stop, and they apply for a ticket. And then what we do is we capture all of those people's information and we do a ballot. And I'll be honest with you, that for me feels a lot fairer than everybody sat there at their keyboard at 5 o'clock and it be basically potluck as to whether your computer works or not, or whether the website works. Now, it is still luck, but I just feel it would be fairer on you. So for example, if you were there at 5 o'clock and you were tapping away and you got the tickets and you put them in your basket and then the PayPal wouldn't go through and then it turns out, oh, you don't have tickets, you'd be disappointed. Whereas if you applied knowing full well that you're being entered into a draw and you might win tickets and you might not, I think that would be less painful if you didn't get tickets. So that's what we're thinking with. Anyway, moving on. Ray says, what player colours do you dislike playing with? So this is a really good question, because the normal question is which colours do you like playing with, which is teal, purple, blue. They're probably my 3 colours that I play with. Now, what that means is because I've been playing those colours, and I used to play black as well, because I've been playing with those colours for, the last 20, 30 years, it means that I'm not used to playing yellow, green or red. So it's not that I dislike playing those, except I do. Because whenever I'm playing yellow, green or red, I get confused. If I'm not playing blue or purple, it's like, so yeah. But the times when I'm actually playing those colours, I don't know, maybe 1 in 100 games, I might end up having to play a player colour that I don't like. Normally, it's usually my game, which means I normally get first pick of colours. But yeah, yellow, green and red are probably the colours that I dislike playing with because, yeah, I'm just not used to it. Frank says, in my last video log, I mentioned that most Lacerda games are now beyond my own comfort level. We'll come back to that in a minute. Whereas you are enthusiastic about Galactic Cruise. And Frank says, in terms of complexity, he thinks there's no difference. And he'd be happy if I could explain this a little bit more. Yes, so those words might be a bit of a surprise to you because I've got a very good relationship with Vital Lacerda. And for many, many, many years now, I have helped work on his rulebooks. I have done the official how to play videos. I've done playthrough videos. When people think of Vital Lacerda games, these days they also think of Ian O'Toole and they also think of me as, oh well, Paul Grogan probably wrote the rulebook and Paul's probably done a video on the game. Now, I've stepped away from working on rulebooks as a general thing about 3 or 4 years ago. So the last couple of games that Vital has done, I didn't do the rulebook for, but I have done videos for. And yeah, I'll be absolutely honest with you. And this is no disrespect to Vital, who I'm still good friends with, at least I think I am. But as I've got older, maybe it's something to do with me getting older, I think it is, and me getting a little bit more appreciative of the amount of really, really great medium complexity games where you can teach it in 25 to 30 minutes and play it in 2.5 hours. And I've played so many of those games over the last 4 or 5 years that, combined with the fact that I'm having to learn so many games and everything else, is that when I go back to a game by Vital, there's always, for me, about 20% too much. I just think, okay, this is a 45 to 50 minutes each instead of a 35 minutes each. And the amount of brain power I'm having to expend just to learn the game is a bit too much for where I am in my life. And that's not to say that the games are not good, and that's not to say that people don't love his games, because they do. I've just moved out of that super heavy zone, and my comfort zone is now the medium to heavy zone. So a game like Great Western Trail is probably at the upper limit of what I'm comfortable with these days, which is still quite a heavy game, but that's where I am. Now, Frankie's saying that Galactic Cruise and a typical Lacerda game are no difference. Well, for me, I think Galactic Cruise is 80% as complex as a Lacerda game. In other words, it's perfect. Now, Galactic Cruise is a complex game. Don't get me wrong. It is a complex game. But everything in Galactic Cruise makes sense. Everything was intuitive, and all of the rules actually made sense in my mind with what you're doing. Now, what that means is the game is easier to learn, easier to teach other people, and easier to actually remember what you're doing in the game. So yeah, I personally feel Galactic Cruise is about 15 to 20% lighter than a standard Lacerda game, and that puts it exactly in my, well, not exactly in my sweet spot, but at the upper limit of what I'm comfortable with, but on a really nice level. It helps that I've taught Galactic Cruise about 30 times, which means I'm like, I know the game really, really well. Next question from Frank. I did post this on Slack. Yeah, I did mention that it looks like I'm not going to be producing the official how to play video for Speakeasy. Now, I've just mentioned that for the last gosh knows how many years, I'm the one that has produced the official how to play video for all of the Lacerda games that have come out from Eagle Gryphon Games. But it looks like I might not be doing one for Speakeasy. And I really wanted to, I really did. But unfortunately, due to timings, I wasn't able to get a clearer time of when it was going to arrive. And I've got lots of other work booked in for this year. I've got a how to play video coming up for the Anarchy. I've got a how to play video coming up for Perseverance episode 3, another one for Perseverance episode 4. I have a huge amount of work going on around this summer, and I think that is the time when they needed Speakeasy. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to fit this in. Now, I still want to do a video on Speakeasy because I haven't played it yet, but I really want to, because from everything that I've heard about it, this might end up being either my favourite Lacerda game or one of my favourite Lacerda games. So yeah, I'm very excited about the game, but it doesn't look at the moment like I will be creating the official how to play video for the game. But I am gonna try and do some kind of video for it. Frankie's saying my Minefa video was the reason that you played your first solo for years. Good. I'm glad about that. Right, next we have a question from Peter. Peter says, I appear to be a big Lord of the Rings fan. However, I have heard that I am not a fan of the living card game from Fantasy Flight Games. Why is this? He doesn't say that. He says, I was wondering why that was, given that I like their other living card games, for example, Arkham Horror and Marvel Champions. This is a fantastic question, Peter. And if I sat down with you for half an hour in a chip shop, I would be more than happy to go into the full details, because this is actually quite a long, detailed explanation. I will try to summarize for you. Yes, I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan. When the Lord of the Rings living card game got announced from Fantasy Flight Games, my excitement levels went through the roof. I was massively, massively excited about it. And it didn't work for me. And I was disappointed. I was really disappointed, because the artwork in the game is gorgeous. And it's Fantasy Flight Games. And it's going to be fantastic, right? And Loki's just come in to say hello. And I really wanted to like it. And I spent a lot of time playing it over and over again at all different player counts, because if I'm not enjoying this game, that must be a me problem, because this is the game which should be one of my favourite games of all time. Now, you're absolutely right. Arkham Horror LCG, Marvel Champions LCG, love them both, right? Absolutely love both of those games. Arkham Horror, and Marvel Champions are probably a 9 or 9.5 out of 10 game for me. I just love both of them. Why don't I like the Lord of the Rings living card game? Now, I have discussed it with many people over the last 10 years or so, and most people disagree with me. But thankfully, this is my Q&A, and nobody else is here to argue with me. So this is my thoughts on it, but I already know lots of people disagree with this. The first thing is, the idea of a card game where each turn you draw one card from the top of your deck annoys me, because that mechanism was out of date more than 10 years ago. So most other card games that come out now give you a lot more control over your draw. Marvel Champions has you just draw up to your hand size at the end of your turn. You're drawing lots of cards. Arkham Horror bases its action selection system on Netrunner. Netrunner from 1996, designed by Richard Garfield, who also designed Magic the Gathering. But it has ways within the game, without putting cards in your deck, which you shouldn't need to do. Don't tell me what cards to put in my deck. Let me decide myself. But it gives you a core mechanism for you to be able to draw extra cards. So that's one of my big problems with the game, is the card draw. Unless you put cards in your deck to draw extra cards, card draw is one card per turn. I don't like that in games at all. The big problem with it in that game is that you have dead cards. And this is another fundamental issue with card games, which is an old, out of date, we've moved on from this, is dead cards. And again, if we refer back to Marvel Champions and Arkham Horror LCG, there are no dead cards. What you do is, if you want more chance of getting a certain card, you put more of them in your deck. But if you then draw the card that you've already played and it's unique, so you can't play it again, don't worry, because in both of those games, you can use cards. There is an alternative use for the cards. In the Lord of the Rings LCG, there is no alternative use for a card. So you put 3 Gloins in your deck, and you draw one, and you play it, great, you've got Gloin. You then draw another Gloin, it's a dead card. You are literally, you've got this card, and there's nothing you can do with it. Now, there might be people shouting at the screen right now, typing away angrily, saying, oh, there is a thing that you can do with cards. You just need to put cards in your deck that allow you to discard. No, sorry, I don't want to do that. So anyway, the full discussion on this is about half an hour long, but this is a game that I am super disappointed by, because I really wanted to like it. And unfortunately, I'm in the minority, which means the game is massively popular. For some people, it's their best game of all time. They absolutely love it. And I just don't, because the core mechanisms of the game, for me, are outdated and don't work. Anyway, there we go. That's that. Right. That's it. How are we doing for time? 50 minutes. Not too bad. Not like last month where we were an hour and 15. Time for a break. Talk about the contest. So, big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters for funding this channel. This video is not sponsored. I'm not getting paid any money at all for this video. All of the advertising revenue goes to charity. And the only reason I'm able to do that is thanks to my Patreon supporters. So if you like the content that I create and you want to support me directly, you can do so at patreon.com/gaming rules. And if you've watched my monthly video log for the last couple of months, Patreon support has actually been dropping for the last few months, and it's still continuing to drop. So if you are in a position to be able to do so and help me carry on with the channel, patreon.com/gaming rules. But a big thank you to everybody who has continued to stick with me as a Patreon supporter. Now, every single live Q&A, I do a £50 giveaway from Games Law. So Games Law give me £25, and then I add £25 more of my own money, and somebody gets £50 worth of game vouchers. Now, the winner last month is Carmel Thompson. So congratulations, Carmel. If you are watching this, congratulations. You have won £50 worth of games vouchers from Games Law. I have sent you an email, so hopefully you've got that email. If you want to enter the contest for this month, all you need to do is you need to click on the link, which Vicky has just put in the chat, and it's also in the description of this video. And if you are listening to this as a podcast, then the link is also in the description of the podcast. But all you need to do is click on that link, and this is open right now. You can do this right now if you want to. You need to tell me what your name is. You need to tell me what your email address is so that I have a way of contacting you. And the answer to the secret question, you need to tell me the name of your favourite Hobbit. And it doesn't have to be one from the films, or in fact one from the books. It can be just whatever your favourite Hobbit is. If you played a halfling in a D&D campaign 35 years ago and you were called Bob, then you can put Bob if you want to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the draw the day of the next live Q&A. So sometime around mid-April, I will be doing the draw. So if you're watching this video back in 3 weeks' time and you think, oh, I've missed the Q&A, I've missed the contest. No, you can enter right up to the day of the next live Q&A. So all you need to do, click on the link, fill in the information, tell me the name of your favourite Hobbit, and I will do a draw, and somebody's going to win £50 worth of games vouchers. A big thank you to Games Law for continuing to support me by giving me basically £25 a month to give away to you. So good luck, everybody. Right. Let's go over to the live question. So I haven't seen these. First one is from Tony. Do I think World Order will need to be updated with a Trump random event? No. And we don't want to really go down the politics. So the reason why I don't think it will need to be updated is World Order, which is the new game coming from the people who designed Hegemony, is actually set in 2010. Now, Trump was around in 2010, but I don't think he was having as much effect on the world then as he is now. So, yes. Next question from Leon. Which board game designer that you haven't met would you like to have a chat, a cup of tea, and play a game with? That's a really good question, Leon. Right. Okay. So, a board game designer that I haven't met who I would like to have a chat with, a cup of tea, and play a game with. Right. What I'm going to do is I am just going to head on over to Geek of the Board Games, and I am going to go through. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at my collection. So let's have a look at my collection on Board Game Geek, and I'm going to sort it by my rating, and I'm going to go through some of these. So I've met the designer of that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. I know, I tell you what. Right, this is a designer which I know and I have spoken to numerous times, but I've never actually met them in person, and that is Alexander Pfister. Almost everybody else I have met and chatted with, but Alexander I've not actually met in person, and I would love to do that. Now, that might be like a bit of a sort of cheaty answer because I do know him and I have spoken to him. So I'm going to give you a second answer. And this second answer might also be a little bit cheaty. Let's have a look. I'm looking at my highest rated games. Okay, so this is also going to be a little bit of a cheaty answer because I have met this person. I met this person once when I was working at Gen Con. And I was at Gen Con, and this person, who is a very, very famous games designer, came into the room in which I was working for CGE, and he was looking for Vlaja. And I basically said, he's not here at the moment, he'll be back sometime later on this afternoon. By the way, I'm a big fan of your work. And he said, thank you very much, and he disappeared off. So he won't remember this, but it's Cory Nikonitsia, formerly from Fantasy Flight Games, genius designer, has designed some amazing games over the years, and he's still designing great games now. So yeah, technically I met him once, but you won't remember it. So we'll go with that one. Yeah, Cory has done some really, really fantastic games over the years. Right, next question from Critical. What's a board game that feels like a snapshot of a specific time or place, and why does it resonate with you? I'm not quite sure I understand the question. A board game that feels like a snapshot of a... Okay, so a board game... Oh, gosh. You can't put me on the spot with questions like this. Board games which particularly resonate with me. because they feel like a snapshot of a specific time or place. I'm going to go back to my collection and I'm going to look through the collection. And we're not talking my favourite board games here. We're not talking Mage Knight, because that isn't resonating with me because of a specific time. I'm going to assume you mean something which I can relate to in my life, like a place that I've been or a time in history that I particularly am interested in, or something like that. Because otherwise, there are very, very, like Mage Knight, for example. Let's talk about Mage Knight, which is my number one favourite game of all time, still. I got sent a prototype, I got sent the files to create my own prototype copy of Mage Knight the year before it came out. I already knew Vlaja. He told me that he was working on this big epic fantasy game, asked me if I'd be interested in playing it. I said yes. He sent me all of these files, PDFs for me to print out and make my own version. And he sent me this like 47-page Word document. And I went to bed that night and I started reading it and I just went, this is the game which I have waited my whole life for. I got such a positive feeling from reading the rule book. I was like, this is going to be amazing. I then spent the next 2 weeks using the Works printer, printing out all of these components, spending every night sticking bits to card and everything else. And then I remember playing my very first game of it and was just absolutely blown away. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is fantastic. So I have very fond memories of, and I can still picture it. I can still picture the time when I sat down and made that prototype. So that I've got very fond memories about that, but Mage Knight's not a real game. Didn't actually happen. Other games on here. Are there any of these games which jump out as being set at a particular time and place? Oof. I'm scrolling down. I mean, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, that's another honourable mention. I first played Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective in 1983. I was in a caravan with my mum and dad on holiday. I was 13 years old and we'd been to a game shop because I'd just got into games at that point. I was playing D&D with my friends and I've always loved Sherlock Holmes, and we saw on the shelf this game called Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. We had no idea what it was at all, and we bought it and we took it back to the caravan that evening and we tried playing it. And for anybody who has played Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, you will know that it's not really suitable for a 13-year-old with his parents. It was an absolute disaster. We spent 2 hours just wandering around London reading pages and pages and pages of narrative, and then got asked all of these questions, got every single one wrong, and scored like minus 150 points or something like that. But I would say I am still playing Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective now. I'm not, because we've played all of the cases that there's ever been, apart from the fan-based ones. But yeah, that holds a very special place for me because I was already a Sherlock Holmes fan anyway. So yeah, I don't know if that has that answered the question. If not, let me know and I can try and answer it again. Right, Scotty's asking. Scott says he watched my Digital Talisman playthrough. Yes, for those people who didn't know, I have done on the channel a digital playthrough of Talisman. And in fact, if you're a patron supporter, I did an extra one too. At some point, a couple of weeks ago, I think I just fancied playing something online one Friday evening, and I did another playthrough of Digital Talisman. He said, I mentioned I played a lot of Talisman as a kid, but I now hate the game. What happened that made you drastically change your view on the game? So yes, this is one of these really, I find really interesting, because like many people, when I was a lot younger, and this is going back to when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, we played Talisman. We didn't have many other choices of games at the time. And when you're 13, 14 and you're playing D&D, Talisman was the game. We would get people round on a Saturday afternoon and we would sit there and we'd play Talisman. And we absolutely loved it because we didn't really have anything else. And at the time, we liked the idea of wandering around, rolling dice and beating up dragons and all of that sort of stuff. Now, obviously, Talisman is a very old school game. And as I've got into more and more games over the years, you look back on a game like Talisman and think, oh, I roll a dice Okay, I can choose to go left or right, but if I roll a 4, I either go 1, 2, 3, 4 that way, or I go 1, 2, 3, 4 that way. I land on a space, and then I draw a random card, and that card can literally be a dragon that kills me, or a +2 sword, right? We talked about swinginess earlier on. Massively, massively swingy. So, over the years, I mean, the last time I played Talisman properly, the physical board game must have been late 80s. Either late 80s or very early 90s is the last time that I played it physically. So I've spent the last 30 years of my life with a perception of what I remember Talisman being, and no disrespect to the game because it's still being played now and there are people out there who still play it and still enjoy it, and that's absolutely fine. For me, with the kind of games that I now play, a game like Talisman is not something that would be remotely enjoyable. In fact, it would be frustrating. But a number of months ago, I'd heard that the 5th edition of Talisman was coming out. And for some reason, my brain just said, I wonder what's new in 5th edition. You know, is this literally just another printing with another publisher with updated artwork? Or is it actually a changed game? And for some reason, I don't know what it was. I think it might have been something in the water. But I got this inkling to think, I kind of want to know a little bit more, just out of a morbid curiosity, to see what have they changed in the game. Anyway, then it turns out that the company that does the digital version, which is Nomad Games. Now, I have a fairly good relationship with Nomad Games in the twice that I've spoken to them. It's always been good. But they were doing a digital version of the 5th edition. And they were just about to release it. So I got in contact with them and I explained the situation. I said, look, I'll be honest with you. I absolutely hate Talisman. I've not played it in 30 years. And I've spent the last 30 years saying, this is an awful game. I would never play it again. But you're just releasing the 5th edition in digital format. So if you wouldn't mind giving me a key to the game, I will do a live stream of it. But I'll be honest with you, I'm doing it for fun. I'm doing it as something a bit silly because nobody will expect it. And I'm just going to do it and it's going to be awful. And they said, that's absolutely fine. As long as you don't, I mean, they did say you can be honest as you want. And I said, yeah, I'll be honest, but I'm not going to blame you if the game's bad, right? That's not your fault. If you've done a really good job of the digital implementation of the game, I'm not going to complain about you. And they said, that's absolutely fine, Paul. Here's a copy of the key. And in fact, they gave me another key to give away to one of my Patreon supporters as well. So they were really nice. Thank you, Tom, if you're watching this. And anyway, so I did the stream. And at the end of the stream, I was like, I actually enjoyed this. And that was the biggest surprise for me, is that it was actually fun. Now, the reason why it was fun, and let's get back to the question that Scott is asking, what happened that made me drastically change my view on the game? The small rules tweaks that they have introduced into 5th edition make the game massively better. Now, it is still Talisman, right? So you will still go to a space and you will still draw a card, and it might be a dragon that kills you, or it might be a +2 sword. But the one rules tweak that I absolutely loved in the game is after you've rolled your dice to see how many spaces you move, if you want to, you can spend 1 fate to move up to 6 spaces in either direction. That's it. I mean, there is a couple of other rules as well, but suddenly one of the big problems with Talisman is you are constantly rolling the dice, going back and forth until you just happen to roll the right number for the space that you want to land on. Well, you don't need to anymore. Now you can just spend 1 fate to move to any space you want to within 6. And that suddenly, yeah. So there was that. There was also spending fate to re-roll dice. There was a few other little under the bonnet changes as well. But it is still Talisman. Don't get me wrong. They've not turned it into like a Euro game or anything like that. But it did actually not change my opinion of the game. Well, no, it did. I no longer hate it. And I'll be honest with you, if Hasbro replied to my emails and did send me a physical copy of the game, I would play it. I would absolutely play it. Whereas Hero Quest, nope. That's another story for another time. Next question from Caesar. Do I think I would realistically return to Galactic Cruise for solo play? I think the solo mode might be a bit much for me to pilot, may just stick with multiplayer. Good question. So yeah, for those of you that don't know, I did a solo playthrough of Galactic Cruise. It's on the channel from a couple of weeks ago, but it was one of the videos where I learned how to play the solo mode whilst live streaming it. So it wasn't, I didn't learn how to play it ahead of time. I learned how to play the solo mode on the stream while people were watching. And yes, it's a very good solo mode. It is within my comfort zone, but only just. I like solo modes that are relatively easy to pilot, and I did struggle with that one, but I only struggled with it because I was learning it while I was doing the stream. If I would have played it again afterwards, I would have been absolutely fine with it. So yeah, the solo mode for Galactic Cruise is good. It will take you a game to get used to it. And if you're interested, I did a video where I went through that process. But yeah, it is easy in multiplayer because you don't have that overhead of having to pilot the bot, but it wasn't too bad for me. Next question from Chris. Will I do a how to explain a game video? Good question. I've not done one of those. I've done various seminars on the best way to teach a game, but it's not something that I've ever done myself. Yeah, I've written papers on it, and I have used my style of demoing games to people, and I've shown that to publishers. I've been contacted, and I've done consultancy for publishers to give them advice on how best to demo their games at conventions, but I've never actually, so all of the knowledge is there, but I've never actually done a video on how to do it. I could do that. It's not something that people ask me about that often. I think I have been asked it before, but knowing me, I'd want to do it, and I'd properly script it, and I'd do everything else. I wouldn't just ramble on for a bit. There is one thing that I'm a little nervous about doing, though, is not everybody agrees with my style of demoing games. Now, that's fine, but what my nervousness is in creating a video like that is that people watch it and go, that's absolutely nonsense, Paul doesn't know what he's talking about. And I am a bit thin-skinned, and I kind of don't want to take that amount of criticism. I know that my style of demoing games works very well if done correctly. If it's done badly, then there's nothing worse. But I've used my style of demoing games at conventions for probably almost 10 years now, and I have had so much positive feedback from people that said, this has been the best demo I've had of a game ever in my entire life. That I know it works, but I also know how much time and effort it takes to prepare for it and to make sure that it's delivered in the correct format and the correct fashion and everything else. So yeah, I've not done one, but I'm more than happy to sit down with you and chat to you or anything else. Next question from Karen. Do people in your non-gaming neighborhood, like your hairdresser or your dentist, know that you are a famous YouTuber? Well, yeah. I mean, so I wouldn't have called him my hairdresser. My barber, I don't know. Does he know? I mean, I don't make any secret of it. I don't tell him I'm a famous YouTuber, but when the conversation crops up of what is it that you do for a living, then I tell them that I have a YouTube channel and I create videos on board games. So I don't make any secret about it. I'm not shy about it or anything like that. I'm not embarrassed about it. But yeah, I think the people who I speak to, I mean, I'm trying to think of the number of people who we know who are not gamers themselves, like people who Vicky works with. They all know what I do for a living. All of your family know what I do. Well, my family now as well. They all know what I do for a living. The guy who cuts my hair probably knows. My dentist definitely does know because he was asking me for what my YouTube channel was. So yeah, I don't make any secret about it. But also, there are very few people that I have contact with outside of my gaming circle. And that is basically, we've just listed them: my dentist, my barber, and family, and that's it. We don't really have any contact with anybody else. The physical neighbours who live next door to us, they know what I do for a living as well. So, next question from Brian: how many async games do you typically have in your queue? It varies, Brian. Right now I have one, because the game of Revive that I was in finished yesterday. Right now I am only in one game, which is Great Western Trail El Paso, but yesterday I was in 2, and I think the day before that I was in 3. So normally I'm in between 2 and 3 async games at any one time. Always different games. I cannot imagine playing multiple games of the same game at once. I would just get totally confused. Oh, I'm also playing Age of Steam on another website at the moment, and I've just finished a game of Terraforming Mars on another website. So it's probably, if you add it all up together, yeah, maybe between 2 and 4 async games in total at any one time. And I have to say a big thank you again to all of my Patreon supporters, because on our Slack channel, which is where the Patreon supporters community is, we have an online gaming channel. And it is so good to see people from all around the world that are supporters of mine, that are on the Slack channel, that are meeting up, creating games, playing games against each other. It's great. So yeah, a big shout out. Thank you very much, because for me, from my point of view, seeing that community there and seeing you all creating games and playing games against each other, it's heartwarming. It's really nice. So yes, if you are a Patreon supporter and you're not on the Slack channel, let me know. You've got access to the Slack channel. I can get you invited. If you are on the Slack channel but you don't know what we're talking about, it's the online gaming channel, #online gaming. And if you're not a Patreon supporter but you have been thinking of becoming a Patreon supporter, then if you do, you will get access to this Slack channel and you can join me and lots of other people in various online games that we play. And it's generally asynchronous. So it's not going to take any of your, actual time. You don't need to sit there for an hour and a half and play. You can do if you want, but most of the time we're playing games. And like, as soon as I finish this stream tonight, it will probably be my turn in Age of Steam and Great Western Trail. Okay, next question. How many have we got left and what time is it? It's 6:15. So what I'm going to say is no more questions for now. It's 6:15. Wanted to wrap this up by about 6:30 because we've got beef stew, which should be ready at 6:30. Excellent. We've got about 5 or 6 more questions. So yeah, no more questions for this month. And let's go through what we've got here. So next question from Drone Explorer. Is this a bot? Can you update on the Obsession redesign? No, I have no knowledge of that. In fact, Obsession is a very, very good game that I've not played. And the reason why I know it's a very good game is I've heard nothing bad about it. And I know so many people who say the game is really, really good. So I know Obsession is a really good game, but I didn't know it was being redesigned. I have no knowledge of that whatsoever. And it surprises me if that is true. If it is being redesigned, why is it being redesigned if it's supposed to be very, very good? So yeah, I don't know about that. Next question is, am I ever going to play Nucleum solo? No. I can tell you this now. As much as I am a fan of the game and as much as I am friends with David Turksey, I have no plans to play Nucleum solo. I have a number of friends who have played Nucleum solo and they have told me it is outside of my comfort zone. So nope. In fact, Nucleum is a game which I think is a brilliant game and I am terrible at. I don't have the capabilities to play that game well. I can play it and I enjoy playing it, but I can't do well because I just don't get it. I don't get what I need to do in order to be able to do well at the game. So no, that's not going to happen. Next question from Drone Explorer. Looks like 2025 games are so-so comparing to 2024, 2023. Did you not see what I said earlier on? Galactic Cruise, Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era, fantastic. And there's loads of secret games that I can't talk about yet that are coming out this year. I don't see titles comparing to Unconscious Mind, Andromeda's Edge and such. Yeah, I mean, we all have our own preferences in games. And if Unconscious Mind and Andromeda Edge were your 2 games from last year, then yeah, I can see how you might not see something this year which is comparable. But for me, yeah, those two games that I just mentioned. And as I say, there is a lot more coming out this year that I'm very excited about. In fact, let's have a look at what I can tell you, because I need to be very careful here to not tell you something that I shouldn't tell you. But I am going to look at my work schedule for the rest of this year. Anything that's top secret, I probably should put in a different colour so that I don't accidentally say it. But let's have a look at games I'm covering soon, in the next few months, which I think are going to be amazing. So that game's going to be good. That game's going to be good. I'm talking amazing here. I'm talking Galactic Cruise, Elder Scrolls level. So that's going to be good. That's also going to be good. That's going to be good. That's going to be good. So Nippon. I mean, I'm really excited about Nippon, but it's probably, it might not be. No, I don't think it'll be up there. It's more of a sort of economic Euro. Great Western Trail El Paso is really good, but is it going to be super top 10? That one I can't talk about. That's top secret. Nucleum Expansion. I'm going to be covering Kinfire Chronicles, and I don't really know much about that, but that's supposed to be quite good. That one I can't talk about. That one I definitely can't talk about. That one has recently been announced, but I don't think it's going to be huge. Furlandspieler announced in their newsletter a few days ago that there is going to be an Ark Nova spin-off game. So I don't think it's going to be as big as Ark Nova, but still excited about it. So, yeah, I think, I'll be honest with you, I've just been through about 20 games which I'm set to cover over the next few months. The ones which I'm most excited about, I'm just going to give two. One of them is Perseverance Episodes 3 and 4. I'm a fan of Perseverance, the system and the games. 3 and 4 are better than 1 and 2. I know that, so I'm excited about those. And I'm going to be covering, and I've not played this yet, this is Horror on the Orient Express from Chaosium. I'm covering that on the 3rd of October. Yes, I am planning that far ahead. Just before Essen, I'm going to be covering that. So, yeah, but there are a lot of good games on here. But I'll be honest with you, there are no games on here on my list of ones which I'm covering this year, which I personally feel are better games than Galactic Cruise and Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. So right now, those two games are looking very high on my list of games that are going to be the best games of this year. Right, moving on. Opinion on a game. Inferno, Agricola with Zombies. I think there's two games there. Inferno, I think, is the game from the same people who did Tindaya. I got the opportunity to cover Inferno. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to. They asked me if I wanted to do a video on it, and it was at a time where I just wasn't able to fit it into the schedule. So I wasn't able to do that, but I've heard loads of good things about the game afterwards, if that's the game that you're talking about. The other one is Agricola with Zombies. Yes, Awakened Realms recently did a live stream or a video where they talked about all of their plans for 2025, all of the games that they've got coming, and their next special edition game after Castles of Burgundy and Puerto Rico is Agricola. They are going to be doing a super deluxeified version of Agricola, which I'm excited about because I was an Agricola fan when it first came out. Less so now, but I am excited about a new version of it. Agricola with Zombies, I haven't really looked into that. I'm not sure that's going to work, but it might be fun. Next question from Patrick. What is the most overused board game mechanism? I've changed mechanic to mechanism. The most overused. I don't know whether there is one. I mean, every mechanism is in games for a reason. I mean, the thing is, we've got so many games coming out all the time. You might think that everything is overused. If you don't like worker placement, for example, you might say that worker placement is overused. But I like worker placement. So, yeah, I honestly cannot think of anything which I think has been overused. And that is because we've got so many games coming out. if 90% of the games came out were all deck building, I would then say deck building has been overused. But yeah, I honestly can't think of anything which has been overused. I think some themes have been overused, but even then, we've got so many games coming out. We are in the luxury of having so much choice. Next question from Pigboy77. When playing solo, do you find it easy to brush over any rules you miss and just carry on playing? I find myself just packing up or restarting as soon as I notice. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Me, with my personality traits, get something wrong and go, oh, don't worry about it, we'll just carry on playing. No, that's not how my brain works. My brain would be, I'm now really angry, I'm frustrated, and I'm going to throw the game out the window and I'm going to start again. Yeah, or just stop playing and put it away. Yeah, that's just how it is. So yeah, I can't, and I'm unfortunately one of these people. When we get to the point in a game where we can't understand the rules because they're not clear, I will prefer to spend 3 or 4 minutes browsing forums to get an answer rather than just making a decision and moving on. Now, I know that's bad, and I know most people say just get on with the game, make a decision, get on with the game, and we'll find out later. I find it really uncomfortable when I'm doing something and I don't know whether that's right or not. It doesn't sit well with me. So I prefer to spend a few minutes trying to find the answer, and if we can't find the answer, I'll still feel uncomfortable, but we will then just have to move on. So yeah, that's me. That's how I am. Next question from Drone Explorer. Thank you for the questions today. Do I prefer brain burners or medium to light games? It depends what mood I'm in. It really, really does. I can't play anything lighter than Carcassonne or Fjords. Yeah, well, I don't even think I could play Carcassonne now. So Carcassonne for me is too light. I need something, and it's less about the lightness, but I need something where I have more agency and more choice over my actions. And a perfect example of this, if you want to see this, just go to my channel from 5 days ago. We did a live stream of a game that came out at the end of last year called Tower Up. Tower Up has rules that you can explain in less than 5 minutes. The game took us 30 minutes to play, and it was really good. We all came away from that game, and that was our first game that we'd played of it, going, wow, this was really good. So games do not have to be super complex, brain-burny, 45-minute rules explanation to be good. Tower Up was a really, really good game. Now, would I want to play anything lighter than Tower Up? Probably not, because the problem is, the lighter you go, you're effectively taking away any meaningful decisions or options or anything like that. So yeah, I want my games to have some decision making where that decision making actually has an impact on the game itself. But also, as I mentioned earlier on, as I've got older, I want less brain burny. But there are certain games, Galactic Cruise is a brain burner. There are a number of games which I play which are brain burners, but the difference is I'm spending my brain power on thinking of what to do rather than spending my brain power on going, I can't remember the rules for this. How do the rules for this work? Oh, it's on page 95. Oh, it's 2 pages of rules for this complex mechanism that we're only going to do once in a game. And I was like, no, I don't want that anymore in games. So, next question. Oh, you're saying you refuse to play games like Voidfall, On Mars, and Ark Nova. They are, yeah, Voidfall is a huge amount of commitment. I love Voidfall. I think it's a fantastic game, but it does require a big learning investment. Thankfully, I love the game, so I was prepared to put in that time to learn it. So next question, also from Drone Explorer. Is there a place where you can learn how to proceed with publishing your own board game? You have no clue where to start in order to order a prototype, or at least read about the process. I'm not sure where there is. I would find Facebook groups. If you're not on Facebook, this is going to be a lot harder for you to do. But I know on Facebook there are a number of groups for first-time designers or people wanting to design their own game, creation of prototypes, getting your game play tested, all of that sort of stuff. So there is definitely a lot of advice out there for you. Also, Board Game Geek, you might want to post to the various forums on Board Game Geek. There are some general forums where you can ask for advice. What I will say is that if you are in the UK, there is something called Playtest UK, which is a fantastic group of people where you can take along your prototype and you will get feedback from it. The most important thing that I can tell you is do not playtest it with your friends beyond the first playtest. And the reason for that is the number of stories that I hear or I've heard for the last 20 or 30 years of I've designed a game, me and my friends all like it. And then you sit down and you play it and it is possibly one of the worst games that you've ever played in your life. Your friends are not the people that you want feedback from. And Playtest UK is a great place because the people who are giving you feedback on your game, they are not your friends. And they will give you the honest feedback. And if your game is terrible, they will tell you that your game is terrible. And you need to take that on board and you need to make whatever changes. Because if independent playtesters have told you that your game doesn't work, then it doesn't matter how many times your friends say it's good, it's not good. Good luck with it. Final few questions. So this is from Asaf. Thank you very much for watching. A bit out of the blue. Can you share what do you feel was different in Essenspiel 20 years ago and the Essenspiel we have these days? Oh gosh, well, in summary. So I've been going to Essen for, I think this year is my 26th year. Yeah, it's either 25 or 26 years. It's very different. It is, yeah, the whole feel was different. I can tell you about when I first was going to Essen and the first few years where I went to Essen. You had to pay with cash. Everything was cash. You either got a demo from somebody in German, which was no use if you don't speak a word of German, but you might get told the rules correctly, but it was in German. So you'd end up having to sit at a table with some German people who would then translate for you. Or you would get a demo of a game in English, but the rules would be completely and utterly wrong. This was our experience going to Essen for many, many, many years, and we eventually gave up and we just got all of the rule books and we read as many rule books as we could, and then we went out there and we basically taught ourselves. There was one guy who used to work at the Cosmos stand 25 years ago. He was great. His English was fluent and he knew the games because he actually worked for Cosmos. So that was the exception, and every year we'd always go back. But the whole thing was very different. If you look, I mean, all you need to do is go on to the whole plan of Essen 2024, or just look at the list of exhibitors on the whole plan from last year. How many of those publishers were around 20 years ago? Most of them were not. So when I was going to Essen for the first time, you've got to think, well, who was there? I mean, the halls were packed, absolutely packed. There were, tens of thousands of people there. There were stalls everywhere. But the big publishers that you can think of now that have huge booths, that are really successful publishers, they weren't there 20 years ago. So, yeah. The pancake stall that sells the Nutella and banana pancakes, that was there. That's still there now. Still the same stall, the same people doing the same thing. But yeah, in some respects there isn't anything different, but in other respects it is very, very different. Whereas now English is the spoken language generally, and if you only speak English, you'll be absolutely fine. There's no problem with that. Most places take card now. Very few places take cash for various reasons. Yeah, so it's good. It is good, but it was less accessible than it was 20 years. It was less accessible then than it is now. Final couple of questions now. These did come in after we said no more questions. Oh no, they didn't. These were already in the chat when I said no more questions. Oh, right, okay. So last 2 questions for today. First one from Jessica. Do I ever go to Aircon? Will I be there this weekend? So I used to go to Aircon, but then about 3 or 4 years ago, well, COVID. After COVID, I realised, well, I already knew this before COVID, I was going to too many conventions. I was going to probably, I think it was 1 year I went to 15 conventions, 3 or 4 of which were in America, 2 of them were in Germany, and yeah, there was like a dozen of them in the UK or something like that. Now, I love going to conventions, don't get me wrong. I really, really do enjoy it. And going to those American conventions was work. I was doing work for Czech Games Edition. They were flying me out there. I was part of the demo team. In fact, I helped put together the demo team. I helped train the demo team on how to teach the games. And it was great. But traveling is not something that suits. It doesn't go well with my health. And I normally have a lot of health issues with regards to traveling, especially long distances, sleeping issues, anxiety, etc., etc., etc. So when COVID came along and suddenly we weren't allowed to go to conventions anymore, I decided to reevaluate my life and say, as much as I like going to these conventions, I need to cut down for 2 reasons. First of all, traveling. Traveling was really doing my health in, but also I was not having enough time to do the stuff that I wanted to do at home. If you imagine, if I was to go to 20 board game conventions a year, that is 20 weekends that I'm gone, which means not only time away from home, it means the amount of content that I can produce on the channel, and I like producing content on the channel. So one of the reasons why Aircon didn't make the cut is the fact that it's a 6 or 7 hour drive away, and it's just a bit too far for me. So the conventions that I go to are generally within 2 to 2.5 hours of home, apart from Essen. Essen is the one exception where I obviously travel for a lot further to get to Essen, but that's because it's special. Final question. This is from Marcus. What is the website for Age of Steam? So I have to be clear, it's not Age of Steam. This website is completely and utterly unofficial and is not affiliated with Age of Steam or the publishers of Age of Steam in any way whatsoever. But the website is called EOT for Era of Trains .coderealms.io. So EOT.coderealms.io. I only found out about this 2 weeks ago, and I am using this site to play Age of Steam or Era of Trains because I don't get to play this game enough. I've got a deluxe copy of this game. I have the physical game and I just don't get to play it enough. And I'll be honest with you, I'm in a position where I love 80% of this game, but there is 20% of this game that I don't like. And I'm going to play it a number of times on this website to see if I can get over the bit that I don't like. Is it because I'm just not understanding it? Is it because I'm not good at the game? Or what is it? But ultimately, if I play a number of games of this on this website and go, okay, I've played it 5 or 6 times now. Yeah, I don't like this part of the game. That will make me happy because then I know where I am. At the moment with Age of Steam, I'm in the position where I don't actually know whether I really like this game or I don't like the game because there's a couple of things in it that I don't like. So I'm using this website to play that. And thank you very much to Mohammed and Fran and Tobias, who I'm currently playing with. Using the Rust Belt map. So that's it. We are done. 1 hour 37. Not too bad. Thank you very much to everybody for watching. Just a quick few shout outs and reminders before I go today. Patreon. Thank you very much to all of my Patreon supporters. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, not a sponsored video. I don't get paid any money for this. All of the advertising revenue goes to charity, and the only reason I'm able to do that is because of your support. So if you wanted to become a Patreon supporter, you can do so, patreon.com/gaming rules. You get access to the Slack channel. You get access to all of the online game servers. You get exclusive access to me almost 24 hours a day. And yeah, that's that. Contest. If you haven't entered the contest yet, why not? Because it's free and you could win £50 worth of games vouchers from Games Law. Games Law give £25 themselves. I top it up with another £25 of my own money, and you could be in with a chance of winning £50 worth of game vouchers from Games Law. You don't have to be in the UK to enter. Games Law will ship to wherever you are. All you need to do is click on the link, which is in the description of this video or the description of this podcast, or it's in the chat now, and you need to just tell me the name of your favourite Hobbits is. There you go. That's all you need to do. I will be doing the draw on the morning of the next live Q&A that will be sometime around the middle of April. That's that. The final thing that I wanted to mention is just what's coming up over the next few days. On Friday evening, I am doing a live tutorial and playthrough of Skara Brae, which is a new game from Garphill Games, which is not here yet. It left New Zealand about a week ago and it's lost in transit. But thankfully, Tom Heath from Slicker Drips has a copy of it, and Tom has sent it to me today with next day delivery. So that should hopefully be arriving tomorrow. So that's coming to the channel Friday night, 7 o'clock, a live playthrough of Skara Brae. And I haven't advertised this yet, but I am pretty sure we're going to be doing fishing afterwards. The little trick-taking game from Friedman and Fries that came out last year, we're probably going to be doing that on Friday night as well after we've finished Skara Brae. And then Saturday is the big one. So March 25th is Lord of the Rings Day. It is Lord of the Rings Day around the world. For those interested, it's actually the date in the Lord of the Rings books when the ring was destroyed. That was March 25th. So to celebrate Lord of the Rings Day, I'm having a whole load of people over and we're going to be playing Lord of the Rings games, except I'm not here on March 25th. So what we're doing is we're doing it this weekend instead. So this Saturday, March 15th, I am going to be doing 2 live streams. I am going to be streaming War of the Ring starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then in the evening, I'm going to be doing War of the Ring, the card game. So Saturday is War of the Ring Day, and that's happening. And both of those videos are on the channel now, ready to go. So if you want to head on over there, click the little notify button, and join us on Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening for that. And that is everything. So yeah, we are all done. Thank you very much to everybody for watching. I'll see you all next time. Cheers all. Take care. Bye-byes.